James Pearson.
Here.
Anna Isabel Dos Reis Cudo.
Here.
David Florio.
Here.
John Cambio.
Here.
Bradford Mayor.
Here.
And Don Cowart.
Here.
Thank you.
And is there a motion to recess into executive session?
I make a motion to recess into executive session.
Anna Isabel Dos Reis Cudo.
Second.
Oh, I gotta
Dave
re-
seconded. We still have to read
Yes.
the items.
I
Okay.
make a motion to go into executive session with student matters, RIGL 4246-5, A8 homeschool requests, approval of executive session minutes 6/8/2023. The following items were discussed: student matters, RIGL 4246-5, A8 homeschool requests. Second, approval of executive session minutes 5/25/2023, negotiations update, RIGL 4246-5A2 SRP, student matters, RIGL 4246-5A8 appeal, job performance of an individual, RIGL 4246-5A1 superintendent of schools, job performance of an individual, RIGL 4246-5A1 superintendent of schools.
And for the public's awareness, our executive session, the job performance of an individual, the person has been notified. All in favor of recessing into executive session?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Everybody ready? All right. I'd like to reconvene the open session at 6:20 PM. Could everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If everyone could remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. And Superintendent Coward, could you provide us with the safety notifications?
Sure. There's a number of doors that exit into the hallway. There's the one that you came into in the far corner. There's one here in the middle. When you get to the hallway, you can turn to your left and go out the main entrance, or you can turn to your right and go out the entrance down by the stairwell.
Thank you. And Member Mayor, could you honor us with the reading of the mission statement?
The mission of the Coventry Public Schools is to inspire, support, and challenge all students in an inclusive community to be critical thinkers, effective communicators, reflective learners, responsible individuals, and global citizens.
Thank you. Next is the executive session report. During the executive session, one vote was taken to approve the executive session minutes of June 8th, 2023. The motion passed unanimously. And job performance of an individual was discussed and the person was notified. And there were no homeschool requests discussed during the meeting. Is there a motion to seal the records, seal the minutes of the executive session?
I'll make a motion that the records of the executive session be kept closed pursuant to sections 42, 46(4) and 42, 46(5).
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes of June 8th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 8th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is the approval of the minutes of June 16th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 16, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Mayor,
On the copy that we were given, I just wanted to have a small change made. It says Thursday, June 16th. It was a Friday.
any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion carries 5-0. And, okay. Next item on the agenda, we are entering the public agenda. During this portion of our agenda, the public is invited to come and speak on any of the topics on our agenda. First item on the public agenda is the celebration of Mr. Craig Levis. Scourer, would you like to start this one?
Yes. So it doesn't seem that long ago that we were sitting up at town hall and we had a conversation with the school committee about, Craig and I switching positions and, him being in a role of support and guide and mentor. And he did all the things that he promised he would do. I want to report that he has been a great mentor to me. He's been an excellent supporter. He gives me feedback whether I want it or not. I wanted to take some time tonight because this is Craig's last meeting as an employee of Coventry Public Schools. And I want to just take an opportunity tonight to be able to acknowledge all the work that he did as superintendent, as assistant superintendent, the time and energy that he put into making this district successful, the things that he implemented that will probably be here for a long time. I had sent an email out to the staff. His biggest accomplishment, probably his hardest task, was leading us through a global pandemic, something that none of us went to school for and got training on, and to be able to tackle some really serious, difficult situations with consistency and patience was something that, not everybody was able to do. Our district did very well compared to how some other districts did in terms of how we navigated, something very challenging. So I wanted to say a few words. I'm going to have Craig come up. Craig, you can come on up here to the podium, please. And then so we have a plaque for Mr. Levis. A plaque. Listen, you're at plaque level. That's pretty good. With our deepest appreciation in honor of your dedication and 8 years of loyal service to the students, family, faculty, staff, and Coventry community. Craig Levis, and then there's a quote, it says, "A time to look back with admiration, a time to look forward with anticipation. Best wishes and congratulations on your retirement from Coventry Public Schools 2023. So I want to give this to Craig, and then maybe he can give us a few words, and then we'll have maybe some folks say nice things about him. The people who are not going to say nice things, they can save those for later.
You do. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know. So this is just, okay. This
Just
is
for YouTube.
For the stream. Yeah, people out there. The thousands. No, I just, I am going to be brief. I know when I see that. Anybody that knows me, I go to a meeting and I'll say before, I'm not going to say a word.
And then he does.
Seconds into it, I mean, that's just who I am, just a quick little funny story. And so I was at a restaurant the other night, and I'm just eating by my, well, not the other night, it was the morning. I go to this Bliss on Sunday morning, 7:00, and all the regulars there. So I sit in this bowl, somebody over here, the same couple sits there. But today, the couple must have gotten there late because it was a new couple. They were like in their maybe 40s. And they're having this conversation about their son's coming home from college. And, they're not looking forward to him moving back and getting rid of him. And I'm looking, and I have a smirk on my face. And the lady looks at me, catches my eye, because I'm trying to be eye contact. And she said to me, are we terrible? And I said, no, but I said, I'm going to be 62. And I said, I moved back in with my mother 17 years ago. So I said, if they just they were mortified. Then we just started to laugh. So anyways, I just wanted to tell that. It has nothing to do with anything, but it has to do with me. Anybody knows me. But yeah, I just want to say that, and many people know, and I say it again, that I've been blessed. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've been sober a long time. And one of the best things about that helps me out is to be in a role of service, right? And I've learned, it's been a gift, that when my life's not going well, which can happen weekly, daily, I turn my attention to somebody else and a miracle happens. And I've been blessed for the last almost 38 years that I've been able to work with young people and work with people who work with young people. And there's always a need. But I have to say, Don talked about the pandemic, I had no idea what I was doing, right? Like the truth. But I couldn't tell people that because people need to know that we're in charge, that we've got things figured out. Because I realized everybody was falling apart. Their personal lives, they had now had to take care of their families. People were dying. They couldn't see them. Our teachers are teaching with their children on their lap, and they're worried about the children in the homes. And I just knew that, we just had to be strong. And my little secret was when people come to me and say, hey, what are we going to do? And I had no idea, but I'd always say, let me think about it. Right. And that was a clue for me. I have no idea. And I say this all the time.
every single thing we've dealt with, right? Same for you, for me. Everything that we've dealt with, we've gotten through. Maybe beaten up, maybe barely getting up, but we've all gotten through. And so during that time, I didn't have a lot of people boosting me, and nothing against anybody. It's just like everybody's dealing with their stuff. And so I had to, every day to drive in was just self-talk and say, you've got this. We're doing as well. I want to thank, Mr. Pearson, especially because you came up with that idea about the policy in terms of how the boots on the ground could have, like you guys are on the ground, we want to empower you to make the decisions. And that strategically, and I believe in that, but that strategically took the pressure off, numbers of people coming and trying to influence the school committee to make a decision, right? The school committee would say, not that you would make a decision, but you did make a decision, empowering us to make a decision. And I appreciate that. And I truly believe that's one of the reasons why we did so well. So anyways, I know I said I'd be short. I just want to say thank you. Whatever I've done here, that's not up to me, right? How that's up to you, right? People feel the way they feel. But I can tell you, there's never a day that I came here where I didn't want to be here, no matter what was going on. And many people here know I've had some difficult situations. Sometimes I can't get out of my own way and I get myself into a jam. And, I'm blessed that I have people that believe in me, have believed in me and work with me. But it's been a gift. I'm a different person than I was. I'm a different leader than I was when I started here. I'm a different person. I learned a long time ago, thank God I don't have to like everybody, but I just have to love everybody, right? But I've learned, definitely during the pandemic, just how important people are to me, how important my family is. Many of you know that I have a little cousin that's an NFL quarterback, and just that's rallied my family together and brought us together. And every single day I try to touch base with everybody in our office. I try to make sure that I connect. And it's not about work, right? We're here for work, but I try to talk to people about themselves and what's important to them. And I can't thank Coventry enough. I mean, it's been the most challenging job I've ever had. Some of the most difficult times in my life, but some of the best. Most, like I said, you've empowered me to be much stronger person, much, I think, more comprehensive in terms of the impact I can have and the impact others have. Much more aware of that. But also just the importance of we. There's never been a success I've had in my entire life that hasn't been through other people. And it's never been more evident than working here at Coventry. So I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the plaque. And like I said, whatever I've done here will be up to everybody else. So I just want to say thank you. And like I said, I can't imagine, this is have been a dream come true for me, in a realistic dream, not a fairy tale. So I want to thank you.
Don't go far.
Questions, comments from members of the committee? Who would like to go first? Mr. Mayor.
I just want to say I'm sure we'll see you. Well, it's been a pleasure knowing you, and I appreciate your service to Coventry schools. And just thank you. And I know you're leaving us in good hands with Don and Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cambia.
Mr. Levis, I just want to say, back in December, when I first met you, you invited me to the office, and right away, I was stepping into uncharted territory myself, and you made me feel like things were under control, and you were very engaged with people and respectful to other people's concerns. And I don't know, you just seemed to have a strength about you that could handle things that were difficult in a way that after you handled it, everything was calm. And it just made me feel more confident about stepping into this role. And now that Mr. Cowart has taken over, I can see that that's been passed on to him. I see the same qualities in him. So I just want to thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Florio.
Congratulations, Mr. Levis.
Thank you.
It's been a long road and you've done exceptionally well. And we've been through a lot, Mr. Levis. It was a tough time, difficult situation, and you just stayed the course. And along the way, you you created a great team of people that would be supportive of the school system. So as a member of the Coventry School Committee, as a citizen of Coventry, I'll be grateful to you the rest of my life. Thank you very much, Mr. Levis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Dos Reis Kuto.
All has been said at all, so I'll just say congratulations on your retirement, well deserved. Thanks for everything that you've done, your strength leading us through the pandemic. I know that wasn't easy, uncharted ways of doing things, and also for welcoming me as well when I first joined as well. You showed me a lot of things that I wasn't aware of. So thank you, and I wish you all the best, truly.
Thank you. I appreciate
I don't know what to add other than, again, a tremendous thank you. You came in as a disruptor, but that's a good way. You challenged the status quo, and I think for the betterment of the school department, for to help our students achieve and perform better. And that was always top of mind. I'll miss our policy work. There's always more to do, but it's some of my favorite work as a school committee member is working on policy and having discussions about concepts and what really, how a school department, how a school district should really be run. And that's through the policy work. So I will miss that. You're off the hook. I get to move forward and do more. But thank you for being the leader you have been for all this time. It's much appreciated, and we will miss your presence for sure.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions from members of the community? No one's at. Mr. Faginoli, come up to the podium, please.
No crying, Joe.
It's kind of funny that every time Craig comes up to the podium and says he wants to say a couple words, it's usually a couple thousand words. So I just want to say, as an athletic director, as an elected teacher, as a union leader, you've always been there for Coventry High School in the town of Coventry. The first day I met you, the one thing that sticks out in my mind was, Joe, it's all about building relationships. And Craig, you're absolutely right. It's all about relationships. My daughter, as you all know, wants to be a school psychologist, and she's here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday subbing. And the other day she said to me, Dad, you know who's a good guy? Craig Levis. And I said, why is he a good guy, Talia? And he said, Dad, he comes in, he talks, he sits down, and he takes his time with you and explains things. And I said, you're absolutely right. And it's all about building relationships, Craig. And basically, thank you for the 8 years of service.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say, 5 years ago, Craig took a chance on me and hired me as a first-year principal. And, it was hard at first, and he does tell you what you don't want to hear sometimes, but he's very direct and he's so supportive. And over the years, we've grown very close. And I feel like I can count on him for advice on really some of the worst situations. I know you mentioned COVID. For me, he was the rock of the district, but I really, really relied on him to hold me up during that because it was a really dark time. And I think he did that for so many people. He's reminded us that we have to look at the whole child and really about social, emotional well-being of not only kids, but also staff. And like Joe said, Craig is in this building all the time. He has built so many relationships. He knows the names of all of our teachers. He knows things about them. He is the first superintendent that I've ever worked with in 28 years that actually knows teachers well. And I think that that's such an important thing for any leader to have is that ability to connect with people the way he has. And I will miss him. I will miss being able to call him at any time of the day or
here we
night,
go.
Don, and have him get right back to me.
Oh, here we go.
Including at like be in the morning. You're up so early. And so am I, and I'm able to ask him. And so, but you will be sorely missed here, and especially at the high school. And I just want to thank you so much. Oh, yeah. And he always comes with food, always. So, thank you. Craig.
Boy, the
I
expectation
might be able
just
to go on a
changed.
diet now.
That's right. Step it up, Dawn. Step it up, Dawn.
Hi, Craig. So I just wanted to also say thank you. For those of you that don't know, when I was the principal at Western, one of my first meetings with Craig, he came into my office and sat down and said something that I didn't want to hear. And sometimes we, said, sometimes Craig will say the things you don't want to hear, but he was right. He said, we can't work in silos. You need to work together as a team across this district. And I see a lot of silos in Coventry, and we need to break down those silos and work together. And I didn't really understand it at first, and I was going to say I was probably slightly offended, but he was right. And over time, I began to appreciate, and definitely in this role, I've come to appreciate exactly what advice he was giving me. The second piece I will say is that Craig took a chance on me as somebody who had not worked in central office at all, but gave me a chance to be the director of curriculum. And I appreciate that, your confidence in me. And I really, really will sorely miss you, Mr. Levis. Thank you so much for everything.
Not going anywhere. Thank you.
We've already changed the locks.
Remember what goes around comes around. Mr. Sands.
Mr. Levis, you know how much I love coming up to the podium and talking. This is my favorite thing to do.
Would you like me to speak to you now?
Yes, please. And that's one of the things that he always did 2 years and more that I was here. He has always covered for me because of my public speaking poise, shall we say, my ums, my ahs, everything like that. And most importantly of all, his compassion he's had for me. He's taught me a lot. Not that I didn't know anything when I came in. I'm sure he probably thought when he started looking at me that maybe I didn't know what I was talking about. But he realized that after a while that I like to listen. And I like to listen to what people have to say. And Mr. Levis has a lot to say in a very quiet tone. I've appreciated every moment that I've spent with you. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me to be part of Coventry and the fact that you took a chance. I think that there's one thing that's underlying throughout all this is he gave everybody a chance. So thank you.
You appreciate it.
Mr. Levis, I have something to say too. Mine's going to be short and sweet. Thank you for bringing me to Coventry. I was happy to be your administrative assistant while you were superintendent. And I want to say thank you. And I'm really happy to be in Coventry, and that's from you bringing me here. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Anyone else? Great. Thank you again.
it.
Don't go far. Next item on the agenda is the Alongside app presentation for discussion.
So, some professional privilege. Mr. Levis said to me, as my last thing I'm going to do before I go is I want to put this item on the agenda. I want to have an opportunity to speak about what this app does. And so I put it on as a courtesy to Mr. Levis, but I also was fortunate enough to be part of a meeting that Mr. Levis organized with Scott. So I was able to kind of get some experience and firsthand information. So I am not the expert here. I'm going to turn it over to you folks to kind of lead us through this conversation.
I'm just going to give this will be brief, because Scott's the expert here, and just so you know, a parent had reached out to me. I've been working with this parent who's involved in a lot of work around education and social emotional learning, and they had mentioned a few different programs to me, and one was Alongside. So I I can't remember how, but we connected quickly. This is Scott Frisket. I'm going to turn it over to Scott in a minute or so, but this is, so we met, we talked about, again, it has to do with social emotional, right? And, and I've been adamant that, because when I first got here, or, even in education, some people say, we're all about academics, and academics is a big part of what we do. But I just have to look at myself. If I've got a toothache or a headache, or I'm not feeling well, people can be talking to me, have expectations, but I'm not the best version of myself, right? If I'm depressed, if I'm sad, if something's going on and I don't know how to deal with it, nothing else really matters. And so, we've talked a lot about that, and Brooke brought that up. We have to take care of each other. We have to make sure our students are okay, that they're physically healthy, that they're mentally healthy. And some people would say spiritually healthy, right? But we need to make sure that that comes first so that they can access what we're working so hard on. Because if we don't take care of the child, if we don't take care of our staff, which I think we did a great job during the pandemic, what does it all matter, right? And so Scott had presented, we talk about our social workers, psychologists, we need more, we need this, but they don't exist. And B, even if we double them, it just takes one student to tie up somebody the whole day. So Scott presented an app that students can access 24/7 that uses artificial intelligence, but in a good way, a limited way in terms of what the students will write. It guides them to one of, I think, 30, am I right, 30?
We cover 38 different.
38, I was close.
Yeah, about 100 plus different exercises and activities.
Right. So it's not just where they're going and texting to something, but it guides them, gives them activities. And Scott's going to talk all about this, but I was intrigued. We were limited in time, so the best thing to do was to try to find a group to pilot this. So we did. We found the Unified Partners. There was 32 of them that we have. I think 25 agreed to kind of participate, but we had 7 or 8 that really went through. And so Scott's going to talk about the app, talk about the experience we had. And this is just to bring you up to speed. There's no decisions that's being made. I talked to Don about, we'd have to look at, how we'd fund something like this. But for me, it's less than like 1/5 of a person. And it's something that would be available. Students can opt out, families could opt out, but some available to every 6th grader, every 7th grader, every 8th grader, every 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and to our staff, right? For less than 1/5 of one person. And I think when you talk to our social workers, you talk to our psychologists, you talk to our guidance counselors, they're overwhelmed. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they're overwhelmed because they can't get to the students and they worry. And this gives us something that we could use to fill that gap. And Scott has incredible research that's taken place all across the country. So I took more time. I want to turn it over to Scott. I really appreciate meeting him. He's an incredible guy, lives in Rhode Island now, doing this work all over the country. And so I think we were blessed to be able to do this pilot. And again, tonight's just to inform you about it and ask any questions. So thank you, Scott. I'm going to go sit down.
I'll just do a quick time check. This is Craig and Don. Maybe just 10 minutes, a little bit over. Does that seem like good use of time? First of all, maybe I'll structure it in 3 ways.
Then just step forward a little bit.
Yes, maybe structure it in 3 ways. Want to introduce myself, explain me and my journey. I am one of the co-founders of Alongside. Just a little bit more about where I come from, why me and my colleagues developed this. I give you a little bit of an overview of what the app is and how it helps and how it fits in with school districts. We've built it exclusively for schools. And then we can talk a little bit about the test that Craig, Christine Hoskins, Helen Whitlock did with some of the students and what that looks like. Thumbs up, that seems like a good use of time today. And then I think on section 2, I apologize, I didn't connect with you, but I think, yes, you have it. So I might give you some directions. First, just an introduction of me. I'm a resident here in Rhode Island. I think this relationship this past 5 months have been special because I live in Providence. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I'm a mentor in Providence Public Schools. So I'm really active in the community, but I also double as someone who works on technology and building technology to help schools. So for the last 12 years, actually helped build prior to Alongside a digital curriculum company. And so for over a decade, I was working with middle schools and high schools, ELA, social studies and science teams to say, hey, how do we think about helping those teachers and those staff, get past the pedagogical barriers to deeper levels of learning. And the reason why I tell this story, this product worked on previously is actually now part of McGraw-Hill Education. So we helped grow that into that company. But the fundamental insight was that a lot of different barriers exist for academic success, to the point that Craig mentioned. Like, how do I just show up and be present and learn deeply? And so that previous product was all about that. And 2 years ago, when me and my colleagues started thinking about how can we continue to build technology to help schools, we always start from that place is, what is the issue that a student is being blocked by to be successful in the classroom? And so actually, all of our school districts we've been working with, they said, the main issue we're seeing right now is just, we're never going to have enough services and people to meet the demand of what we're seeing with mental health issues. And so how do we think about complementing our social workers, our counselors, and investment in resources, services, with a more of a tier 1 preventative tool? And so that got us thinking about how can we put in students' pockets or on their Chromebooks something where they have personalized access to exercises and activities that are designed to help them with their stress, anxiety, and different things. So that's kind of the genesis. Another fun story about Alongside is that Kyle Nassy, who's a graduate of Coventry in 2007, which is that elephant with the pole right there, is on our team, and he's a product manager. So he helps actually design the app. He couldn't be here today, but he says hi. So that's a little bit about us. We started the company 2 years ago. And last year was our first year working with school districts across the country to make sure that Alongside is helping students, works well with principals, social workers, school counseling teams, et cetera. And so these tests range from a school district outside of Dallas, ISD, or Dallas, Texas, which is probably a school district the size of Providence Public Schools. So not like Coventry, but like on that kind of scale. School district just outside of Indianapolis, probably more demographics of Coventry, rural Tennessee, Seattle, Washington, et cetera. And so what we wanted to make sure is that we can build something that was helping students. So again, Coventry got to be echoing on what was said earlier. Craig is all about relationships. I remember the first time that someone in Providence recommended that they take a look at Alongside. Craig said, meet me on Thayer Street and we'll go have breakfast together. And so that kind of kicked off just a conversation about what were some of the challenges he saw in the student population, what he was looking for, kind of some new innovative ways to augment and supplement the school counselors, the principals, the staff, and what they're going through. So that's a little bit about me and our journey and the tests that we ran here. Maybe any questions on that? Cool. Hi, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Scott and Matt. Matt is, I think, in charge of the computer today. So I think section 2 is just want to give you a little bit of overview of some data around the state of adolescent mental health. Just for people not thinking about this and what kind of challenges students are facing in school districts. I think it's helpful to start here, and then we'll spend a couple minutes of what the app does in this section. So what we're showing here is maybe a show of hands. Is anybody familiar with the CDC YRBS study? Or is this first time looking at this data? There are sometimes more state-specific surveys that are run like this, but ultimately this is a survey of student health. And so one of the things that this tracks every 2 years is it looks at the amount of students that are persistently sad and depressed, so much so that they can't focus on routine work like schoolwork. It looks at how often students, and this is looking at high school students in America. So that number in 2011 was 28% of high school students in America were persistently sad and depressed, and has been growing and growing and growing. And now, as of the latest one, I think it's 42%. So almost half of students probably at Coventry are experiencing this. It also looked at things like how many students, high school students in America are, I apologize, seriously considering attempting suicide. So either passive or active ideation. So 22% of high school students in America. I share this because this is kind of our starting point of some of the trends that we know show up as school avoidance. It shows up as, behavioral issues in school. It shows up in troublesome academics. And so a lot of the underlying symptoms are here that we know schools are asking social workers, counselors, teachers, just like, do one more thing. Can we also help address some of the underlying mental health issues that students are facing? And so this is more of our starting point of, can we at Alongside help be part of the solution here with another resource? Any questions on this from the committee? Okay, maybe the next slide would be helpful. So a little bit more about our team, just before we get into it, is so our focus is, again, not being on the services side, providing more a pipeline of social workers or school counselors, et cetera. It's more about providing an equitable and accessible resource in the form of an app that you can get on your phone or on your Chromebook or iPad. And really behind, everything inside the application is being designed by PhD level clinical psychologists. So this is led by Dr. Elsa Fries and the rest of our team, Dr. Blanca Hare, Dr. Clark Hayes, and Dr. Guido Entenberg. And so the vast majority of what students are interacting with the app is actually being pointed to clinical exercises in a chatbot. So you might be opening up about, I'm stressed, or I just broke up with my boyfriend, or I failed a test, or too much is going on. We are pointing you inside the app towards an exercise. Think of this as kind of a dialogue, a back and forth exercise that is written by our clinical leaders who have about 50 years experience working in school-based mental health clinics and are also experts in clinical behavioral, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, and other evidence-informed practices to help adolescents. One more. Thank you. And so I guess if I haven't spoken to this directly, for those that are familiar with the multi-tiered system support model, really where we fit in and why we work exclusively with schools is we're trying to help be part of that kind of low cost but scalable resource that's on a preventative side. And so while we're helping with tier 1 prevention, we're really helping to on-ramp or help students who need a little bit more of that tier 2, tier 3 level support on-ramp into school counselors or social workers, or maybe telehealth or community providers. Maybe next slide. Thank you. And so a couple of the things that we focus on inside the app is one, 24/7 access. So we see that students are using the app when it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's when they're hiding in the bathroom. It's when there's 3 kids in front of them to see the counselor. It's maybe during advisory period when they have a little dedicated time. So it can really be wherever they, whenever they want to access it. It's personalized. And so as Craig mentioned, we'll talk about in a second, we cover 38 different categories of adolescent issues. This is like relationship issues, grades issues, friendship issues, etc. And it is confidential and safe. So for students who aren't opening up and don't feel comfortable talking or confiding in maybe a trusted adult, it is that safe space to get connected to help. And so the other thing we're noticing that is really easy to implement. And so what we saw not only in Coventry, but we're seeing at scale is that most of our partners describe Alongside as meal prep, as kind of like once the beginning of the semester or the beginning of the year, you introduce the app to students and then they have access to the tool in the toolkit. And so it's not the weekly lesson or the weekly activity that has to compete against instructional time. It's the tool that students have access to. That's what we see. All right. Thank you. So specifically inside of the app, there are 5 key features. There is a chat bot and a chat experience. That's where students spend 75% of their time actually actively talking about an issue they're having, being pointed to an exercise and going through it. Specifically there, we use a technology called natural language processing. So that means a student can write in whatever they want in 60 different languages, actually. And so we're identifying if it's a relationship issue, if it's stress issue, if it's grades and tests issue, and then pointing students to the appropriate set of exercises they can pick from. We also have a journaling section that students can use to process their thoughts and emotions. curated relaxation videos like mindfulness videos, psychoeducation. So think of these as like SEL lessons that are in every student's pocket or on their device that they can browse whenever they want. And also stories, so you can hear from other teens going through issues that you might be going through as well too. And maybe next slide, I'll go here. Just to cover a little bit more, because students spend so much time in the chat experience, this is the breadth of the different types of issues that we see. And every time we usually start a conversation and we work with the counseling team or social worker, they're like, you know, the major issue we're hearing in my last conversation is bullying, or we're hearing a lot of academic stress. And so what makes Alongside nice is that we know, especially from a school counseling perspective, usually 90% of the school counselor's time is spent with 10% of kids. And so you might be hearing about a couple kids that are opening up about an issue, but we have the breadth that even the students that aren't coming and getting help or silent, never confiding in anybody, when you open up inside the Alongside app, you're being pointed to, maybe you're going through loneliness issues or sleep issues, or you're having panic attacks, or you're having body image issues. And so we have exercises and activities for each of these that we're pointing you to as a result of this. Maybe just to be conscious of time, maybe just go to one more slide. Actually, one more real quick. You know, just for now, it's helpful to see like what we hear from students when they're using the app. Again, we're meeting them where they're at, trying to give them a safe space. So these are some of the quotes. We can go to quotes that came from Coventry students, but this is what we're seeing across the country is, I can clear my headspace. I liked how you helped me plan a conversation I'd been dreading all week. I like that I feel comfortable talking to you. LlamaBot is a good listener. There's a llama, it's the mascot, to clarify I'm not talking to someone, but I'm working with this chatbot. So share these. You know, some of the other ones we see is, thanks so much for helping me through the tough nights. You gave me great advice. And I think you really get a sense from this is, you know, one of our key goals is how do we really help augment the investment in great services they're providing, training teachers, building capacity, having social workers and counselors, but also just making sure there's this great preventative resource that students have access to anytime. And so that's really what we're focusing on. Okay, I know this is quick. We don't have a lot of time. Maybe just pausing. Section 2 is just trying to communicate a little bit about what the Alongside app is. Any questions from the committee? Awesome. Maybe just go about 3 more slides. We'll see an overview. Just want to give a couple more. One more. Yeah, let's start here actually. So just want to give you, we'll transition for a second to the test that was run at Coventry. Before we get there, we did 2 types of tests, or excuse me, we had 2 types of rollouts this past year. One was where we started working with teams last fall, and we would do a rollout at scale. So this is an example of a school district just outside of Dallas, Texas, very similar demographics to Providence Public Schools. And their chief of schools said, okay, we need a new solution. We need to try something different. And they initially wanted to test with about 50 students at 4 different middle schools. And that was going to be their test for a couple months. And what happened is 50 students at every school turned into about close to 400 actually at every single school, both because staff and counselors are excited about the benefits and because students were sharing it with each other. And so what we saw just in a couple months at this large school district is 1,500 students started using the app. They did 10,000 chat exercises. Think about these like, hey, I don't have to wait 6 months to see a counselor or a therapist, but 10,000 exercises getting students help in the moment got delivered. And at scale, 88% of the time, students were self-reporting that it was helping them feel better in the moment. They're waiting in the counseling office, 2 o'clock in the morning, et cetera. So this is kind of a rollout at scale. And if you want to go to the next slide, you can get a little bit more sense. It's probably hard to read, but again, these are more of the reflections about what are students providing and feedback of what they liked about it. So maybe fast forward a little bit, a couple more slides, I apologize. A couple more. Just coming to Coventry's test. So kudos to Craig and Helen Whitlock and Christine Hoskins for running a great shorter evaluation, not expanding and doing a rollout to like the masses, but saying, let's go with a small group of students. Let's give them voice. and input on the kind of tools that we're interested in sharing with students. And there were 7 that raised their hand out of that group. I think it was like 20 that wanted to test it for a couple weeks. So 7 students at the high school over a couple weeks, their guidance was use the app, see what it's like. They did 54 different unique therapeutic chat exercises and sessions on the app, rating it 100% helpful at the time. And some of the things they shared is, I liked how you identify strategies with the exact situation. I like the action plan a lot. We put these action plans and summarize what you've talked about and give students something to look at. It puts all the advice into one place for reference in the option event. Some students share some feedback too. I didn't like how you said breakup and not rejection. Yeah, my action plan was for a rejection. So you still see a little bit of great feedback too, where students are like, well, this is I want it to be a little better. And so what we see is, from students is that we're meeting them, they're helpful, they're appreciative, and they're already proactively giving feedback on things that we can tweak and improve too. So, so this is a summary of what we saw. I know this was the goal of Craig and team, is to say like, hey, let's get students saying, is this something we like? It came on the heels of a presentation to all the high school staff as well too. I know we met in that room right there, and principal and assistant principal and social workers and substance abuse counselors were there. So I think this is the third thing we wanted to highlight today. It's just about some of the data there. I think before I wrap, I just want to say again, it's an honor to work with a local school district. I fly around the country and visit a lot of different schools, and to have like a lighthouse of innovation here in Rhode Island, it's been a lot of fun. So thank you. Don, thanks for the conversation a couple of weeks ago. I'm becoming more interested and up to speed about what's been happening with this test. So thank you. And Craig, again, the theme of taking a chance and relationships is strong here too. And the cool thing is that thousands of kids across the country have already started to use Alongside and feeling better. So, thank you for, being on the tail end of the year and trying it out with your students. So yeah, I'll give it back to the group. Any final questions for me?
Any questions from the committee? Yes.
No questions really, but comment. I think this is great. Now I am thinking of a question.
Yeah.
What is really the success rate of this app? I mean, you've given me a lot of the information, but when you look at the end, towards the end of using the app, like what is the defection rate, for example? Like I know Equilibrium, right? They used to, there was an app that my work used, and the defection after 6 months was like, it doesn't really work. So I'm trying to understand how this really plays in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. I think if I understand, I'm not familiar with the app you're referring to. So I think, one, we take an approach that like there are very clear mental health diagnosable disorders. So some students have like general anxiety disorder, et cetera. I think something like close to 10% of the population has these. So because we are more of a tier 1 preventative tool, we are not administering more of like a medical diagnosis and only working with a population of students. And coming back to the slide with that triangle, we from day one haven't attempted to be the tool that like 5% of students who have acute issues that we're working with, school psychologists or external providers with. We're not trying to be helpful there, one. So we're trying to be the preventative tool that's helping with all students. And so what we see for us as success is one, do the masses start to use this? Is it easy to roll out where it's not just a couple kids who maybe like have a diagnosable or are hospitalized regularly can use this? Currently, are they self-reporting? And we're going to start working with third-party organizations about its effectiveness to help me learn how to self-regulate, deal with anxiety and different types of issues I'm dealing with. So we're seeing that present. And then the other thing is, because we work exclusively with schools, we know that there are other very specific issues that we're helping to decrease. And so we're starting to quantify that. So that's in terms of student behavioral issues. And so from all of our larger rollouts, we've seen quantifiable decreases in student behavioral problems, time spent out of class, disruptions, etc., as well as saved staff time, specifically with school counselors and social workers. And so in all our implementations, what we have is we have school counselors and school social workers saying, the students that used, the 10% of students that used to take 90% of my time, the time I need to spend with them is cut in half or a fourth. And so that frees up my time to be able to focus on things I don't get to as well too. So I think we anchor on kind of those two things. Can we actually be a preventative tool for all? So not on more the diagnosable disorder, and are we helping with very clear behavioral issues and giving time back to help with specifically school counselors and social workers? Does that help
Yeah,
address your question?
it does. It went further than what I was looking for, which is great. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Cambio?
I have just one quick question. I'm sure there'll be many more down the road, but
Yes.
I was looking at the crisis alerts, the emails that go out to the
Yes.
school. So if there's a student types in something, talks to the bot, whatever, does the crisis alert only go to the school or does it go to the parents as well?
Yeah, great question. So right now we for context, if people haven't gone there, is if a student inside the application opens up about a severe issue. A severe issue is defined as I'm talking about hurting myself, I'm talking about hurting someone else, or abuse, or someone I know is a risk of harm. That is defined as a severe issue. And the general purpose of the app, which is 98% of students are coming here just to get help with being an adolescent in the world today. But in 2% of cases, we have 2% of students who do trigger that. And in that case, what we've done is we've built protocols in consultation with the Columbia Lighthouse Project. The Columbia Lighthouse Project has defined the Columbia Suicide Severity Screener, which is like the universal screener test that's used at schools to understand risk levels of students.
Mhm.
And so we're following their protocols of, one, sending a notification. So if a student triggers this, we are pointing students to a screener test, which we administer.
To a what, please?
A screener, so a screener inside the app. So you answer 6 questions, which is this screener tool, which is assess risk. As a student, you are given information to destigmatize, reaching out to 24/7 resources like the 988 or local organizations that we can customize in the app. So for instance, here in South County, if there's some other organization that we want to promote awareness around, we can point students to in real time. And we point students to a safety plan, which is approved by SAMHSA. And so all those resources are in the moment provided for students. At the same time, the student, what triggered it, any additional information like a safety plan they did, is emailed during school-based hours to the school support team that's defined by the school. And so the reason why that recommendation takes place by the Columbia Lighthouse Project is because there's a lot of issues that are based at home. And oftentimes the school knows best. And so it's a good starting place to start with to understand what's the appropriate course of action. There are some options that if a student is an imminent threat, there are some automated ways to get a wellness check requested for the student as well too. And so those are the protocols that we follow.
So it doesn't automatically go to the parents
It
at the
doesn't
same
automatically-
time?
no.
I mean, if it's a crisis type situation, I would think
Yeah.
the parents probably would want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of crisis, we're following typical protocols, which is to kick off like a wellness check, which goes through emergency services, which would notify.
It goes through what, please?
Emergency services. So like, we would go to like 988 or 911 if that was the case.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Any other questions? My turn. So you've actually answered some of my questions already through questions from the committee. So thank you for those. Those are good. Start with some basic ones. How many school districts are you working with currently?
Yeah, this past year we worked with about a little over 20 school districts in the country. And tests range from, rolling out broadly to like 4 middle schools in a large school district to similar kind of 1-month tests, similar to what Coventry did, starting conversations a little bit later in the year. total population is about 5,000 students across the country already.
The talked about a little bit about the confidentiality
Yeah.
of the information in your terms of use or the privacy policy, one of the two. Sorry, I don't remember which. It talks about availability of PII data.
Yeah.
What PII data? And this is sensitive PII data. This isn't, if you categorize it, a lot of the information you're collecting is very sensitive. Which we don't recognize in America very well, but Europe is a different story. What, who has access to the PII data
Yeah.
that you're collecting?
Yeah, a couple things on this, and thank you for the question is, so our starting place is to be, FERPA and COPA compliant because our background is working and providing solutions for schools and adhering to school-specific data sharing policies and the laws that govern providing solutions for students. So that's one. Two is any data that is collected, and we try to collect as little information as possible on students is stored in US-based data centers too. The third is that we do not share, we're not an advertising-based company. We're not like Instagram or TikTok, and we're not sharing data to advertisers. So the only data that's available is from the school district upon request or from parents to adhere with FERPA and COPA kind of compliant rules. And so that's just a request to our team if it did come up and there was additional information was being requested. Does that answer your question?
Yes. The technology for your, I think it's mentioned in the presentation, you're using ChatGPT.
No.
What is the technology behind the chat?
Yeah, great. Great question. So alongside is would be considered an AI assisted chatbot. So ChatGPT, for people who aren't experts, is 100% generative AI. So there is it's just completely making up things. So we use basically AI technology in two localized ways inside the app. So the first is we have a proprietary natural language processing model that is developed in-house by our PhD machine learning scientists. And that is when when the llama says, "Hey, how's it going today?" Or "Don, what's up? How's your day going?" And Don says, "Whatever. I broke up with my girlfriend," or "I failed the test," or whatnot. That's our own proprietary model that understands where to point a student to. And we are pointing students to then clinically developed exercises, back and forth exercises in the app. 98% of the content that students are interacting with in the app is pre-written by our PhD clinical team. 2% of content is we use a different generative AI tool currently called Claude. It's just similar. And we use it in a very safe and controlled way just to provide some validating comments. So it's when you say instead of just having, it sounds really tough everywhere, it can give a couple extra words so that it helps students feel seen and heard as they're going through exercises. So that's how we use that technology. Was that helpful?
Yes. Yeah, it's important because certain AI models and certain AI software, you run risks of, for my company, for example, I can't use ChatGPT because there are concerns that
100%.
OpenAI owns it and they will take whatever you develop for their own purposes.
Yep.
there's
We do
concern.
not use them for a couple of those same reasons and for also very much performance reasons too.
It's slow. Yeah. Question for Mr. Cowart, then what is our plan moving forward? I know that it's recommended that, well, I shouldn't say it's recommended. Sorry. I know there's some language that, we look at an opt-out model so parents can opt out of this for their students if they want to. What are we doing moving forward?
Yeah, so we actually don't have any commitment at this point. All we did is partner with Scott to do a pilot to, see how it would work with our students. If we were to move forward, we have to look at a lot of different things. We'd have to look at the affordability. We'd have to look at opt-in, opt-out type options. Usually an opt-out is easier than an opt-in because, instead of collecting 4,500 pieces of paper, you might collect 5, right? But we also have to make sure we do some due diligence on all the information you talked about in terms of the sensitivity of some of the data that is collected. And then, when we go into some sort of agreement with somebody, there's a contract, and usually we have our attorney look at the contract to make sure that everything is, exactly the way we need it to be. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. The purpose of tonight was something happened recently in the schools that we were excited about, and it's the summer, and we're looking at making some decisions going into next school year. And this was an opportunity to provide you some basic overview of what transpired. It's not looking for a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's just informational. And then if we decide as a school department to move forward with it, then, I'll probably, start doing that work with Scott. And then, at some point, if needed, I could come back and give the committee more information.
Any further questions from the committee? Mr. Mayor?
Just one quick question. If during like the enrollment process, if a student has a specific diagnosis, like a behavioral or what have you, is that able to be input? So like they kind of knows like how, like, I'm not explaining it right. Like,
Yeah.
so it, like, so that the app or the AI would know how to handle it, or does it just purely go by what they input on that at that specific time?
Yeah, great question. So we are not collecting information and have an intake form of like, hey, here's my medical condition, or here's a referral from my doctor or whatnot.
Okay.
We are purely a place where we're allowing students to open up about
Okay.
what's going on. And therefore, based on those feelings, those issues that adolescents are having, pointing them to our clinically validated exercises. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Member Dos Reis Kutu.
So this is basically when I was younger, I would go to the library and research certain things, or,
Yeah.
or instead of scouring the web and saying, what do I do if this happens? This is basically that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just a tool for the youth to be able to use without being afraid to reach out to anybody else. And it's kind of like their own confidential way
Yeah.
of finding a solution on their own.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm still thinking about the confidentiality of like, if I know that this is being tracked and I'm a student,
Yeah.
right? I might use it once or twice, but then I'm like, oh, I don't want to use it.
Yeah.
Because now they're going to know.
Yeah.
So, which goes back to my initial question, what is the like not use or defection is what I
Yeah.
used of the app if this is implemented?
It's a great question. So two things. One is we are very clear and set expectations with students about how exactly the app works. So when you're in the app, there's an onboarding and welcoming about clearly defines what this is. We're kind of like, hey, maybe you've been exposed to a lesson about SEL or something. Ultimately, this is personalized for you in real time. That's ultimately the most valuable thing that we're providing is basically personalized and accessible access to those resources that you're saying. We're also very explicit about like what the rules are about what you can get help with. And if you ever open up about a severe issue, then we have to not only connect you and recommend resources that you take advantage of, but notify a school appointed person to provide additional support. So really it's that on-ramp to tier 3 level support. And what we're narratively hearing and what we actually have data around is that, we're helping catch students that were falling through the cracks. Okay. Now, that's a little bit about the communication of it. So, we don't see a bunch of actually student pushback about like what the rules are and whatnot. Coming to the usage thing is the trends that we generally see is that when we're rolled out to a student population, like anything, you have varying usage. So you have kind of different curves. And so we see basically between 50, 60% of kids coming back and using this a little bit, and about 40%, at least right now, using it like once or twice, and like that being sufficient for them. And so we see but there's different distributions of usage. And so that's kind of to be expected as well, is providing this thing. And part of it is, as a preventative tool, you're also not really aware of who really needs the help. So you're getting a lot of use from kids that you might know maybe using it, you're recommending it to. You're getting a lot of students from usage from students who would never imagine they need it. And maybe there's some that don't really need it as much too. And so part of this information that we work with schools is in a de-identified way, kind of help you understand with data, like what's happening, how is it being used in your community, to help you understand its usage as well.
Thank you. I will add, whether it's this or any other technology that we've used in the past or will use in the future, is we always make our decisions based on usage and impact. And so there have been programs that we've purchased in the past that we no longer purchase because over time the usage fell off to a point where it stopped having impact. So that's not about this app. I'm just saying in general, as a school department, we want to make sure the rate on investment is appropriate, the return on investment is appropriate, and we want to make sure that people are using it the way it's supposed to be used. So no matter what, whether we purchased it or decided, decisions down the line, we would always analyze that information.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions from members of the public yet? All right, thank you very much for the
I
presentation.
know we went over time. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, you
Nice
too.
to meet everybody.
Next item on the agenda is Central Office Organization 2024 presentation for discussion.
This is going to be, I think, probably relatively short and the first of probably one or two times that we'll have this conversation. So what you see in front of you right now is our organizational chart. This is very similar to the org chart we've had in the past. Amy and I and Dawn, we've worked a little bit to adjust some things based on some decisions we've made in terms of our administrative structure and titles and responsibilities. I assume that it's probably going to change again based on some of the decisions that we, make over the summer with different positions. And I just wanted to present this to you for your knowledge and information. This is the basic structure that we have in place. Some titles may change, but overall, this is the structure. The second part of this is it's a table. If you recall, when Craig and I switched positions, we followed that up with a roles and responsibilities list that was appropriate for the two of us. And now that Amy is going to be put it into the role of assistant superintendent, she and I met and came up with a roles and responsibility list that was appropriate for us and our skills. One of the things that we're going to try to do, and we communicated this to administrators, is Amy is going to oversee, for the most part, teaching and learning in the district. Anything that's academic based will fall under her purview, which if you look at the list is pretty much that. And I will oversee all the operations, which is what I've been doing for the most part already. And that's the model we've put together. Now, this list is just for Amy and I. The director of special ed, the finance director, the director of grounds and facilities, those have not been changed yet. We'll probably do that at an administrative retreat over the summer, but this is for the super and assistant superintendent going forward. So I just wanted to present that to you. If there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to take them. I just wanted you to know kind of where we stand right now.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? I have one.
Okay.
I don't think you're completely off the hook for student discipline because
No.
some of that will make it to
It
your
will.
desk.
And I think we actually talked about the appeals policy and how it has to go through the different layers before it gets to me. So we wanted to make sure that we hit every rung of the ladder. So, principal to assistant superintendent, superintendent to super, and if needed, super to school committee. So you're right about that.
It never reaches us.
Yep.
Any comments or questions from members of the public yet? All right, seeing none, moving on to the next agenda item, which is curriculum coordinator job description, discussion and vote.
So on the last table I had put up there, one of the placeholders we put in was a secondary coordinator for curriculum instruction assessment. I just wanted to take a second to explain to the committee what Amy and I are considering doing with the director of curriculum role, and for you to look at the job description, ask any questions, and then, approve this job description so that if we decide to go that route, we have what we need. So I'll take a second to kind of explain our current structure. Right now, we have a director of curriculum instruction assessment. That's Amy. Underneath Amy, we have a few different positions. Two of the current positions that are sitting under Amy are curriculum coordinator positions. You've approved those in prior meetings. And those two curriculum coordinators basically service elementary. There's a lot of curriculum work happening all at once at the elementary level, and we needed people, and as Amy puts it all the time, boots on the ground, people in the buildings helping teachers to implement new curriculum. One place where we haven't had that same level of support is secondary. The secondary folks haven't had that same level of support. They have curriculum coordinators for each content, but they haven't had a central office, boots on the ground, in the building person to support them. And what we've seen through our own observation and data collection is that some of the challenges that we are experiencing at the secondary level, we are not experiencing at elementary because there's a different level of support. So one of the things that Amy and I have been talking about is, instead of filling the position of director of curriculum with another director of curriculum, considering filling that position with a coordinator. And so this is the job description that would go with that. I'm looking for the committee to approve this so that, if we find the right person and this is the route we decide to go with, we are ready to go. If we don't find the right person and we wanted to go the director of curriculum route, we already have that in place. We're not eliminating that position. If anything, we would just not be filling it.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the curriculum coordinator job description?
I make a motion to approve the curriculum coordinator job description as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Next item is introduction of BlackRock principal.
So this is good, exciting news that I wanted to make sure the committee had an opportunity to hear from me and also to meet our new principal at BlackRock. BlackRock has had some turnover in the last few years in the role of principal. Mrs. Jackard was there for a few years and then went to Washington Oak. Mr. Del Barone was the principal there last year. He has relocated to another state, so he doesn't live in Rhode Island anymore. So he took a leave at the end of the year. We needed an interim, and then we knew we'd be hiring for this upcoming year. And looking for stability for that building is, a key goal for Mrs. Anzalone and I, because there's so much work going on in curriculum and there's so much happening at the elementary level that we need a good, strong leader there. Well, during our search for an interim, Dr. David Gisaldi, who's all dressed up there with the tie and the jacket, Dr. G, as they call him, had another job in the education industry. He has been a principal before, but he wasn't a current principal and was missing it, and decided to apply for our interim position, and came in under the support of Amy and the folks in that building, and did a really great job helping to close that building out in the last 6 to 8 weeks, which is not easy to do by any account. But to be fair and to be consistent, we posted the position, we had a number of applicants, and we interviewed. And Mr. Gisaldi, Dr. Gisaldi Dr. G was very interested. Obviously, he had been there. I think he had fallen in love with the building and the opportunity to be the principal. He interviewed very well, and he was selected by myself and the committee to be the principal of BlackRock School. His experience is very interesting. He is a Rhode Islander. His parents live in Coventry. He attended school in Rhode Island, ended up going to college out of state, and eventually got and correct me if I'm wrong, his first teaching positions in Washington, D.C., in that area, but then had an opportunity. It's a long path, but he ended up having an opportunity to work in another country, as a principal of an American school, but in another country, which is very unique. He's bilingual. He has experience in the job, but in a very different way than some of us, have experienced. And so I think he brings something to the table that, is not typical of candidates that we interview. He also has worked with challenging populations in the past and is comfortable, but in a very calm, consistent way. And it was something that, impressed me immediately. So, David, you can come up to the podium because they're going to ask you questions potentially, but I do want to present Dr. David Gisaldi as the new principal at Black Rock School. And hopefully for a very long time, he will be in that position.
Well, thank you. I didn't prepare anything, sorry, but thank you all for giving me a chance to speak. In addition, just want to personally thank Don and Amy as well. They just took a chance. I know that's kind of the theme of tonight, but they took a chance on me coming back into formal leadership education with students. It's been really a great road. I've really enjoyed being here as the interim and now starting a new journey with Black Rock. I've really enjoyed my time. I was previously working at College Board, so doing a lot of work specifically in Connecticut as well as in Maine, leading the whole state in both of those states. But just knowing that my heart really was back with working with kids on a day-to-day basis. So now I've had that taste over the last few weeks, and I've really enjoyed it. And I look forward to all the wonderful things that we're going to do with Black Rock, and I've really enjoyed working with the leadership team extensively. So looking forward to the new journey.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from members of the committee?
Congratulations on your new position. I'm looking forward to my granddaughter saying, I love our new principal. I'm sure that's going to happen. So congratulations. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Welcome, congratulations. And what's the secondary language?
It's Spanish.
Ah, muy bien.
¿Tú hablas español?
Ah, no muy bien, pero hablo. Tenemos que tener una conversación para hablar, nada más.
Sí, cierto. Sí, yo viví en Colombia y antes también en Paraguay.
¿En Paraguay?
Yeah, I lived in Colombia and in Paraguay.
Very good. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Answer my question. I was going to ask what country you worked out of. I just want to say congratulations, welcome aboard, and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Any comments, questions from members of the public? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Next item on the agenda is the adoption of Omni bid list for discussion and vote. Mr. Cow, would you like to explain?
Yes, so I am learning a lot by looking at this auditorium project that I've spoken with you folks about over the last few meetings. There's a lot of things that I'm learning. And one of the things I'm learning about is working with different folks on different bid lists. And so there's an MPA, which is the master price agreement that the state has in place. But then there's other bid lists that we participate in. Like we participate in Sourcewell. What's the other one, Harold? MHEC? And so what that basically does is it allows us to partner with contractors without having to go to an open bid process because they're on an approved bid list. So we've been working with WB Mason quite a bit. They're the ones that connected us to the company that's gonna, the proposal for the chairs and the proposal for the carpet. And I'm trying to get everything in order. And one of the things that they had talked about is that the company that does the chairs is on a bid list called Omnia. And when I talked to WB Mason, they recommended that we join the Omnia bid list because it's a federal list, and that it is that the Rhode Island bid list, it's backed up by that, right? So Harold did some research, and we basically discovered we're actually already on it. It used to be called the U.S. Communities. I think that's what it was called. In 2019, it changed its name from US Communities to Omnia. And we're already on the bid list. But Harold and I want to make sure as we progress through this process that we dot our i's and cross our t's. And so I want the school committee to vote. Even though we're already on the bid list, I want you to vote and to approve that it's something that we're interested in participating in. So that if I end up working through WB Mason and partnering with this company, Cedia, that is on this bid list, that everything is on the up and up and nobody can question that I did something that wasn't, ethical or, clearly defined by, what should and should not be. And in the packet, what I did is I gave you an email and I gave you some information from their website just so you can see what they have. They actually already partner with Rhode Island quite a bit. There's a number of different companies that they work with. So that's the long and short of it. I'm happy to take any questions, but that's the basics behind getting on that bid list.
Thank you. Any questions, from members of the committee? I have none. Any questions, from members of the public? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the adoption of the Omnia bid list.
I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of the Omnia bid list.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is CHS Auditorium Renovation Project for discussion and vote.
This is part two. So part one was the bid list. Part two is kind of update you on where we're at and where we'd like to go. So the first thing I want to tell you, I'm very happy to report that after the last meeting, you folks signed off the letter that I sent asking for the 1-year extension for those 2 grants. And we received notification today, actually yesterday, maybe, that had been approved. So one of the things I'm going to have you do in a moment is I have those 2 grants here in front of me again. The dollar amounts haven't changed. The only thing that changed is the expiration, which is June of 24. I'm going to send these down the line for you folks to sign. There's 2 of them, so you have to sign twice. And all this is the exact same signature that you did before, except on the document with the new expiration date. And then I have to send that into RIDE. So RIDE approved it. I have received the approval in writing. This just has to be signed and submitted to them. It's basically the MOU saying that we're going to, use this money appropriately. So that's the first thing I'm going to send down the list, down the line. So I need to get those signed. The other thing that Dawn gave you today was the proposal that we got from Mason. So the first one is for the seating. And what they did is they took the Cedia proposal, Cedia with a D, and put it into this document. And I've explained this to you already a few times, but I wanted you to see the breakdown in terms of the installation costs, the cost of the chairs, the cost of the installation, all the things that go into the cost of putting in the seating at the auditorium. The second one is from Ruggieri Carpet. This is right now on Ruggieri Carpet letterhead, but Mason may end up holding this one as well, so that we're running right through Mason, because Mason is on the MPA. And so they would have the master price agreement through Mason and Rhode Island backed up by Cedia being on Omnia. So it's kind of like a 2-tiered approach to having 2 bid lists together. And so this is the cost for the flooring. If you add those numbers together, it's the number I told you before. It's about $470,000, which is just under what we've been approved for. So what I'd like to do today is have you sign these 2 new agreements, and then to authorize me to spend the amount up to what these 2 grants equal on the auditorium project. Now, I may have to go out to bid at the end of the day, and if I have to, I will. If I'm able to use the Omnia and the MPA and the MHEC, then, that's fine too. But I want to be able to move forward on this. And I think I've explained to you enough about what we'd like to do. You've seen the carpeting, you've seen the pictures of the chairs. This is just a financial breakdown for us to be able to move forward. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? It's clear to me also. Any questions from members of the public out there? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the CHS auditorium renovation.
I make a motion to approve the auditorium renovations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries 5-0. Let's take a moment to sign these.
I think you just pick a line and sign.
That's what I was looking at. Thank you.
What's that? Yeah. Mrs. Maycomber is very excited about this project. She's had a lot of influence over the different products that we've considered. That's why she's got a big smile on her face over there. Yeah, I'm not allowed to do any decorating whatsoever. I know. I know. We'll get there. Mhm. So what we have to do is, I'll give them to you. But they have to be scanned and then sent back. So if you scan them, send them to me, I'll send them back to them. In my other folder. Yeah. In my other folder back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is teacher recalls for discussion and vote. Mr. Coward. Again.
Yeah, this is pretty fast. So a few weeks ago, we had our teacher job fair where the teachers who are thinking about teaching something different or moving to a different school or level have an opportunity to do that. We had a number of people on layoff. Once that process was over, jobs that are available, people on layoff are given an opportunity to take those jobs. So the list that you have, I think you have the list. If not, I have it. We have 4 people that were laid off by this body that we are now going to ask you to recall from layoff.
Do we have to read them? I don't remember. Do we have to
I
read the names?
think we read the names when we laid them off, so might as well read the names when we call them back.
Okay, I can read the names and then I'll enter the motion. The names are Kristen Marcello, BlackRock, 1.0, grade 3, Marley Ritako, thank you. Washington Oak, 1 year only, grade 2, Michelle Diener, Washington Oak, 1.0 preschool, and Brittany Pusateri, BlackRock, 1.0 grade 5. Is there any discussion from members of the committee? Any questions? Any questions from members of the public? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the teacher recalls.
I make a motion to approve the teacher recalls.
I second it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Excuse me, Mr. President, was it Mr. Cambio, another Cambio that said the second?
I believe so. Yes, Mr. Cameo. Next item on the agenda is public comment policy for second reading, discussion and vote. We discussed this during the first reading. Any questions or comments from members of the committee regarding the public comment policy? Any comments or questions from members of the public? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the second reading of the public comment policy?
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the public comment policy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the public comment policy as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the public comment policy as presented.
Is there a
I second it.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is Finance Director's report for discussion.
So, a lot going on tonight's meeting. Mr. Sands is, I think I've notified the committee and I know I notified the school community, is leaving at the end of the month. He is taking a position at a charter school that he worked at before. He knows them well, they know him, and he had an opportunity that, I think was difficult to say no to. So he has his finance report tonight. He'll come up and speak, but it's also his last night. I want to acknowledge that Mr. Sands, he's working with us to the end of the month, but this is his last committee meeting. And I just want to thank him for all the work that he did to help us through our budget process this year and through negotiations and everything that we've done that required, financial input and expertise. Mr. Sands was there. And the thing that I really appreciate about him is that when he doesn't know the answer, he finds it and brings it back. And his honesty and his work ethic, he's often the last guy to leave the office because he knows there are things that he wants to try to get done to make sure the district continues to run appropriately. So I just want to thank Mr. Sands for all his time and energy. I've really gotten to know him well, and I appreciate everything he's done professionally and personally. I find him to be a pleasure to be around, and we'll miss him in the office. Mr. Sands, you want to come on up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Coward, for that introduction. Just to get to matters that's going on right now in the finance department, we have 2 months left of this year. We're working on those 2 months. They're going to come sort of towards the end because we're also going through an audit. We're going to be doing 2022. We're finishing up 22, and then we're going straight into 23. So we're going to be concentrating on the audits and going into the new budget. Once the new budget is approved, which we're not sure when that's going to be, tonight. Oh, that's fantastic. But we also need one other part of that budget that has to be approved. But that being said, most of our concentration right now is closing out the 23 and then preparing for the 24 budget. It is my pleasure to tell you that Mr. DeVerna has been integral in sort of lifting up the whole finance department as I've gone through some life changes. And he has really stepped up. I think he is the perfect person to at least continue the business office going forward. And I highly recommend him as the director of finance if you so choose to go down that road. He has been great. He has been great in support, and he is as hard a worker, if not harder than I am. And one of the things that I want to say to the full school committee is that as this year wraps up, so does my tenure at Coventry Public Schools. Unfortunately, fortunately, you have Coventry Public Schools has Chris DeVerna ready to continue day-to-day operations. I can unequivocally say that every minute of my time at Coventry has been interesting, fulfilling, and constant. The school committee has always been there to support me. They have shown me the ropes, and I've always appreciated everything that you've got, everything that you've
said to me, I will miss everyone that I've worked with and for, due to life changes. I've chosen to return to the charter school and spend more time with family and friends. I am grateful for the time I've spent with Kathy Patnode, who's no longer here, and Donna Clooney, David Floria, Mr. Pearson, Anna Dos Reyes Cuto, Brad Mayer, and Mr. Cambian. Coventry School has a committed core of professionals that consistently is working to meet the expectations of students and parents. I wish the best to all my colleagues at Central Office, one of the most hardworking groups that I've ever been involved in. I know that I am a better person for working with everyone. I will look forward to visiting Coventry and will continue to support where needed. And as long as you need me, I will be here to help out. Thank you.
We might have questions.
Don't run yet.
Any questions? Questions or comments from members of the committee?
Mr. Sands, I just want to say thank you for your commitment to doing a really tough job. Dealing with people, there's interaction. Dealing with numbers, it's just a blatant stare in the face, and you've done that job incredibly well. I want to thank you for your service.
Any other, Mr. Florio?
Mr. Sands, thank you for your service. You did a great job. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you ahead, when times ahead. And thank you so much for being our finance director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Florio.
You're welcome. Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor.
Mr. Sands.
I just also want to say thank you for your service and I wish you well in your next chapter.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you for everything that you've done throughout the years. And it was really a pleasure working and meeting and teaching me the budget information when I first joined. That was tremendous. And I wish you all the best, truly.
Thank you.
For the pleasantries, I actually have a business question. So
Okay, great.
you mentioned the audit and wrapping up. Do we have a date of when they expect to wrap up the 2022?
There's no date yet, but we're working incredibly quickly on that. The town, especially Bob, is he is an auditor and is working very diligently at making sure that this happens as quickly as possible. They're hoping to wrap up, and you can help me on this, Chris. They're hoping to wrap up the 23. Is it in December?
That's good to, that's good to hear. Hopefully we'll have an audit before we start budgeting, but, or at least before we finish budgeting. All right, business aside, Mr. Sands, who knew that 350 years ago, our ancestors were playing on the beach on Block Island and we'd be working together here today. It is true. It is true. I didn't know that until recently, but thank you for everything you've done for Coventry, and I just echo what everyone says, best of luck on the next chapter and stay in touch. I still have to show you that database.
Oh, we've got to do that.
Yeah, we have to.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Any questions from members of the community yet? All right, seeing none, you're off the hook. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Well Furniture Grant for discussion.
Yeah, this is a great one. And I'll be fast. So anytime the Department of Ed has some funds, I try to jump on getting some funds. And so a grant came across for some furniture. Coventry qualified for $150,000 worth of furniture, but it wasn't just an open purchase. It was for specific furniture types. In your packet is the different options that we had to pick from. And so I worked with our special ed administrators to, and by the way, the turnaround was very quick. It wasn't like the kind of thing I could sit on for even a week. I quickly put together a list, which you also have in your packet, of the items that we thought would be best used in our schools. We purchased things for every single school, which is in your packet. There's nothing to approve. I've submitted it. It got approved. The furniture will be purchased and delivered to the buildings and put into the places that we identified on our list. So it's a good news story.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions, comments, from members of the committee? Yeah, thank you. It's always nice to see when we have grant money coming in, we can improve the environments for our staff and students. Any comments, questions, from members of the community? All right, seeing none, moving on to next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the superintendent contract for discussion and vote. I guess I will lead this discussion. The school committee is deciding to reset the clock on the superintendent contract. His current contract was started in October when he took the role from Mr. Levis. And we feel it's in the best interest, for his best interest and the school committee's best interest, to get it back on the regular clock that is aligned with the school calendar. So starting in July. And that way, when we start our review processes, everything's aligned. You know, God forbid we have to find another person at some point, but just to make sure everything's aligned so there's no hiccups for anyone in the process. That said, any questions or comments, further comments from members of the committee for doing the superintendent contract? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the superintendent's contract as we discussed?
I make a motion to approve the superintendent's contract as presented.
I second it.
Let's see. Could you, sorry, adjust your motion to say as discussed? Because we don't have the final language in the contract.
Okay. I make the motion to approve the superintendent's contract as discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Cambio. Any further discussion from members? of the- Any comments or questions from members of the public? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is superintendent report. Mr. Cowart.
So one thing I did learn from Mr. Levis, among many things that I learned from Mr. Levis, is that sometimes you have to use your position to make statements so that people know, you know, how serious things are and how, what our position is. And so under superintendent's report, I just wanted to put on record my feeling about where we stand with the contract negotiations for the CTA. I've had lots of conversations with individuals, but I haven't had many opportunities to speak on it, you know, as the superintendent in a public, you know, forum like tonight. So I will say a number of things. We started conversations with the leadership of the CTA back in February. We reached out to all the interested parties and scheduled our negotiation meetings in March, and they carried into April. We, with due diligence and good faith, negotiated what I believe to be a good and fair contract that benefits both the school department and the members of the CTA. When we were done with negotiations, we notified the town council that we were done and that we needed them to put the ratification of the contract on their agenda. I think it's our charter that requires them to vote for the teacher contract. When I asked them to do that, I was asked to come and present and share the content of what was negotiated. So I shared the contract with them. I shared the tentative agreements in terms of how we worked it out. And then I sat in executive session, and I think for about an hour, we went through every single thing that we negotiated. After that meeting, oh, and by the way, I scheduled individual meetings. Not everybody took me up on it, but I asked anybody who wanted to meet that they could meet with me, and many people did take me up on that. So I had individual meetings. I also, after the executive session meeting, took questions in writing and responded to every single question I got in totality and shared the responses to those questions to the entire committee, and I think to the entire council, and I think this committee. Then we had a meeting to discuss the contract, and we didn't have it. It was town council had a meeting scheduled that they were over capacity and needed to, cancel and reschedule. And then since then, we've heard really nothing, nothing official, right? And I've asked numerous times, when are we going to bring this back forward so that we can get this done? I've asked individual people. I can't ask the whole body. I mean, I could, but I haven't yet. But I feel that we've lost a lot of time from when we started this process to where we are now. And knowing that there are other contracts that we need to negotiate on our side, and there's contracts that they need to negotiate on their side. And knowing that this one is now most likely going to go, I mean, next week is the last week of June, and nothing is scheduled. There's no meeting that I know of that's been scheduled. I've offered the high school auditorium, knowing that the last meeting was over capacity. So I wanted them to have a space that was large enough. Just let me know when you want it so we can schedule it. And it hasn't been scheduled yet. So my feeling is, without anybody officially notifying me, that this is going to go into July, which is challenging because Mr. Sands, Mr. DeVerna, Mr. Hill, Mrs. Anzalone, myself, we are preparing for next year. We're switching over to next year. We have to budget. We have to do salary schedules. We have to make purchases. There are things that we have to do that are impacted by the budget, which hopefully they're voting on tonight, but also impacted by the contract. And if I can't get the contract done and ratified, there are some things that we're stuck waiting on. And it's a really uncomfortable position for us to be waiting on some things. And like I said, we also have to negotiate now with the SRP, and because their contract ends in the end of August. And it's summer and people take vacations. And so I guess I put it on the agenda because I wanted to publicly state how frustrated I am that we are in this position, that we are at this point, that we're not done with this. And if there are things that if there are questions or things that need to be asked, I've made myself available many, many times and will continue to make myself available so that I can do my part to make sure that people feel comfortable with what we have ratified on the school side. So that's my statement, so that, it's crystal clear, at least my position on this matter.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from members of the committee? Mr. Mayor.
I echo exactly what you said, and I'm just as frustrated as you are, and probably other members of the committee are.
Member Dos Reis Cuto.
Is there anything that we could potentially, in your opinion, Don, that we could potentially do to speed this up?
The only thing I could
Technically,
recommend
legally?
is you could reach out to your counterparts again. You each represent a district. You have a counterpart on the town council that represents the same district. You've done it once already. Maybe it's worth doing again.
Okay.
To push it from that angle.
Noted.
Any other
Thank
comment? Any other comments or questions? I guess my comment is, I don't know what I can add to that, because there definitely doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency on the town side to deal with this and for them to make a decision. It also reminds me, we could also probably ask for another lead. We haven't had a leadership meeting in a couple months. I think we're overdue, and that would be a good opportunity to raise this issue again. Or hopefully they just vote on the contract before we have to do that, but we still need a leadership meeting also. Very frustrating. I will be reaching out to my counterpart and also the town council president and asking in between cruises if they could schedule the vote. That would be great. That's all I have to say. Any questions from members of the community? Yeah. All right, seeing none, moving on to citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments tonight? Going once, twice. All right, no citizens' comments. Next item on the agenda is scheduling of the next meeting. Is there a motion to schedule the next meeting?
I'll make a motion to schedule the next meeting for July 27th, 2023 at 6 PM.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right? You said 22nd.
27.
27th. Yeah. Is that what you said? 27th? Okay, thank you.
There's only one meeting in July.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn at 8:11 PM?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Joe.